Okay, so with that, we are going to move on to our next group, which is fundraising. Whilst our sanitization happens, thank you for that. So you guys can get ready to come up to the front, make yourselves comfortable, and I'm going to share the project topic. If we could just click to the next slide. I'm not sure where the clicker is. Oh, there it is. Great. So the fundraising group had another exciting and challenging topic, which was to focus on addressing opportunities to ignite active contribution within the community, with donor fatigue and COVID fatigue having impacted fundraising outcomes in 2020. This group was set to explore the opportunities to tap into the missing middle within the community. This subgroup of individuals who either do not contribute to the campaign or contribute less than they are perceived to be able to. Widening the safety net of funds will form part of this action learning group exploration as well. So over to you guys.
So thank you. Good evening, Viv, Devora, Melissa, EOLI board, faculty members, community members, and our fellow cohort. My name's Lauren Conn, and I have the honor of introducing the EOLI 2019-2020 fundraising group to you. Tammy Glick, Glenn Heinrich, Corin Tolman, and Leanne Singer. Personally, I joined the fundraising group because, unlike most of my fellow group members, I had nothing to offer and had absolutely no skill set in this area. All I knew was that I wanted to learn more, push myself out of my comfort zone, and more importantly, add value to the position at Jewish Community Services, where I'm the Tikva Food Bank coordinator. So while our group was toing and froing with this action learning topic, I remember the day quite clearly. Leanne, being so practical, said, "We're staring it in the face." Looking at me, she continued, "Let's do a case study on the JCS Tikva Food Bank." I felt that everyone in the group was delighted with the choice. Well, for me, this felt like winning the lottery. I always knew that working with this group was going to be dynamic, but now I was even more enthusiastic at the opportunity of witnessing how together we could make a substantial difference to the organization I call home. So little did we know, 2020 was not going to be the year for perfect vision, but rather for a global pandemic that would rock our community into chaos, calamity, and crisis. When we started EOLI in November 19, JCS had two food initiatives, being Tikva, which were providing fresh fruit and vegetables, as well as the food bank, which was supplying kosher, non-perishable food items. At that time, we were supporting 239 Cape Town Jewish community members with 274 hampers. In March 2020, the onset of COVID, we united these two food initiatives to form a stronger, more productive Tikva Food Bank, with non-perishable food hampers, including toiletries and cleaning materials, being delivered once a month, and then the fresh fruit and vegetables being delivered every 2 weeks. By November 2020, we were supporting 439 people with 644 hampers, and this was excluding any emergency parcels that needed to be issued on a day-to-day basis. So with this massive increase in numbers, costing our organization well over 200,000 Rand every month, we had to relook, rework, and reinvent our entire system. So unfortunately, our numbers continue to climb, with the latest and updated figures at 455 members of our community. So you can see, with including our emergency parcels, 100% increase to date, our community remains in crisis, calamity, and chaos. So one of our group's goals was to create further education and awareness around the food bank by enticing those who have never donated to make their worthy donations to us, rather than many other struggling Jewish organizations within our community. We knew this was going to be difficult, but we were determined. So now, standing here before you this evening, I am so proud to introduce the 180 Hero campaign, created by the Yoli 2019-2020 fundraising group, which has had a massive impact and ultimately been an unbelievable fundraising campaign for the JCS Tikva Food Bank. Over to Leanne.
So one of those mind-boggling moments was when one of our colleagues or cohorts came up with the idea of everybody's always asking for a lot of money. How about we ask for small amounts of money regularly? Because in that way, everybody can donate. In that way, everybody can get involved. So Tammy came up with the idea of a recurring campaigns of small amounts being 180 Rand a month. And we came up with a 180 Hero campaign, which was extremely successful, and we've come up with a concept which we believe is a plug-and-play model for the rest of the Jewish organizations that can easily be rolled out. Again, a simple principle, 180 Rand a month, repeat donations. It's not going to touch your pocket, but it's going to buy a fellow Jewish community member a meal for a week. We had a lot of fun with our campaigns. I'll take you through some of the executions. So this was a simple infographic that we came up with. We toyed around with the fact, do we say that Jews are hungry, right? Do we need to spell it out and put it in people's faces? But we realized we had to, because we were playing with people's basic needs here, hunger and survival. So we decided we're going to say it as it is. There are Jews in Cape Town that are hungry. We highlighted the needs of the food bank. They increased by 75%. The number of hampers that need to be donated every week that the food bank hands out. Again, an example of a campaign that we ran on social media to show you what your 180 Rand can buy. And the premise of our campaign was 180 Rand can buy a food parcel for a week, but you very easily spend 180 Rand on your nails. You very easily spend 180 Rand on flowers when it's Shabbat. You very easily spend 180 Rand on donuts at Dunkin' Donuts. So we launched our campaign around Hanukkah. The rest of my team will discuss the processes behind the fundraising for you, but we had a lot of fun on social media with the copy that we played around. So you could spend your money like this. You don't have to give up on that, but just spend your money like this as well. We facilitated donations through SnapScan. SnapScan has a really cool, nifty option where it's either a once-off donation or a repeat donation. Glenn, who's the financial wizard in our group, wasn't very happy with me being the salesperson, saying, let's not highlight the fact that these are repeat payments. Let's just let them do the repeat payments. They'll find out sooner or later. So Glenn and I, he was the ethical one. I was the salesperson and the marketer. So this is our launch. This was our first campaign. We ran it on social media and through WhatsApp. This was on the launch of Hanukkah. Sorry, the clicker's this way. We played around with the concept of full tying into food, keeping bellies full. So we had grateful for this one, and then some stats on the other side. So again, we had the FOMO factor. Don't miss out. You can still do this, but do that as well. This is one of the fun ones, which Tammy and I wrote. We had a lot of fun writing it late at night. A hot towel shave is a well-deserved luxury for today's hard-working guy. And who doesn't love a man who takes good care of himself? Do you know what we love even more? A man who takes good care of others. So it was a really, really cool campaign. Hot towels or hot meals? Just saying. Sushi, we all love our sushi, but again, you don't have to give up on your sushi. Just have more affordable sushi and donate to the food bank and feed somebody else for a week. The coffee discussion. I mean, we all know how much we spend on coffee. Cape Town has a coffee culture, so we played along with that. The Coffee Wars, Truth, Daily Grind, Deluxe, been there. Sadly, some of these coffee shops are no longer around during COVID, but it was a fun campaign, and it yielded the results. For your weekly spend on coffee, you could actually buy coffee, milk, and sugar for another family for a week. So Glenn is not here to join us tonight because he's having a baby today, but he is joining us. We pre-recorded his message.
Good evening, everyone. I firstly want to apologize for not being able to be here in person. I was really looking forward to it, but our families had to go into isolation as we are hopefully going to welcome our new son into the world this week. I've been asked to speak about the results and key challenges for this project that we did. So first of all, I'd like to proudly say that we managed to raise over 184,000 Rand that we expect to collect over this year. What was quite surprising is that almost 102,000 of that 184,000 total came from once-off donations. So 84 people donated once-off compared to 35 people who donated reoccurring donations. And you must bear in mind that our entire campaign was based on small reoccurring donations. So a strong preference came through that people prefer to donate once off. What was also really interesting is that the top 3 donations in terms of once off donations contributed more than 55% of the total, which definitely goes to show that in every single funding campaign, the large donors count a lot. And no matter what you're trying to do, you have to take that into account. What was also interesting in the once off category was that occasions like bar mitzvahs and weddings were a great opportunity for people to pull together and get people to donate. So a large portion of our donations in the once-off category came from occasions as well. Moving on to the recurring donations, we managed to get through 35 regular donations, a total of just shy of 7,000 Rand a month, which we expect to collect almost 83,000 Rand this year from that. What is also interesting is that almost all of the donations were 480 Rand, which is what we asked for, and very few people donated more than that. Also interesting was the fact that 10% of our donations came from outside of Cape Town. So this is definitely a category that, or a pond that is worth fishing in more for any campaign. In terms of our key challenges, time was definitely our biggest problem. We had less than a month to implement our project once we got going, because we very quickly hit the funding moratorium, which basically doesn't allow organizations or anybody to raise funding in the first half of the year. We engaged the UJC board to try and make a case based on the fact that the Tick for Food Bank was an essential service, but unfortunately we were unsuccessful given the context of the changes underway in the whole of the funding realm in terms of the Vision 2040 project, as well as the competing needs of other Jewish organizations. So we had to move on and implement our project. That unfortunately meant we didn't have time to iterate and refine our campaign based on the feedback that we received. We also couldn't execute on a lot of our key ideas, such as using personalities and social media to propagate viral campaigns. But that does mean there's plenty of follow-up work to do, and that would be the perfect time to hand over to Cohort to talk about the follow-up work.
Okay, thanks to Glenn for all of that, and good luck with his wife and having a baby. How exciting is that? My section is Quo Vadis, basically where to from here. And just want to touch on 4 key results. The first thing is our group was amazingly successful, not just successful, amazingly successful, because as you heard, we will raise in 12 months almost 185, well, we have raised 185,000 Rand. That's what we've raised so far in 12 months. And well done to all of our group. So, kol hakavod to us all. We're a great team. And that's despite all the limitations that Glenn outlined earlier on. Secondly, Glenn touched on the fact that we now have people doing recurring monthly payments, and we're hoping that it's not just for 1 year, for 12 months, but it's going to be for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and ongoing, because it's a small amount of money, which doesn't make, hopefully, that much difference to the donors. So that they continue to do that, we're going to have them for life. And actually, if you extrapolate the amount that we're currently getting with our 35 donors per month, over 10 years, it's over 800,000 Rand. And hopefully, we're going to get a lot more than just the 35 that we've got to date. Our cost to income, we're very proud on the very, very low cost to income ratio of 3.2%. For fundraising, this is very low compared to other fundraising organizations and fundraising events. We pride ourselves on this because I come from a very strong direct marketing background, so accountability is really, really key. And we hope that in any future fundraising that we do, that we keep the ratio between 4 and 6%. However, we only got 35 new donors. This translates into 29.4%. We wanted more. Okay, let's look at solutions. Hopefully, there's no longer going to be a funding moratorium. It's a question mark because it's beyond our control. I'll move on. Hopefully, we're going to have a lot more sharing of resources and databases between the various Jewish organizations. I'm proud to say that together with Lauren, standing right here beside me, I'm very proud to be taking the banner, holding up the baton to go forward, being part of the 2021 fundraising team for Tick for Food Bank. And we've got other experts coming in, such as Michelle Stein. I'm sure some of you have heard about her. She is really brilliant. So let's move on to the next point. We didn't really have time. We wanted to do research into our donors, who actually donates, what are their demographics, and not just demographics, which is age, income, what they do for a living, where they live, etc., but also the psychographics to paint a rich picture. We want to know what are their lifestyles, what are their interests, what are their activities, what are their attitudes, what are their opinions. We want a rich picture to tell us more about our donor base and to build a more successful database so that we can fundraise more effectively to that database. As Glenn said earlier on, we didn't have time to refine our communications campaigns. So what we need to do is we need to stop and listen and very honestly say, what could we have done better? Okay, every campaign you need to actually do an analysis and say, what can we do better? So one of the things that Glenn also mentioned, we didn't have time to implement some ideas, exciting ideas like using key personalities. We thought of Tally Babes. She was very busy in December, and then we ran out of time, quite honestly. And there's also Lily Stapstick and other ideas like that. So if we can create a viral WhatsApp campaign that our children will just want to pass on to all their friends, can you imagine how exciting that would be for Tick for Food Bank? Glenn also highlighted occasions are a cool time to give. So let's try and make that go viral. You know, when there are occasions, especially if it's like a particular time of the year, like Rosh Hashanah, make it cool to give to Tick for Food Bank. We'll relaunch with a moratorium currently on the 1st of July to our Cape Town Jewish community, hopefully with a much better campaign, although our campaign we are very proud of. And then we, as Glenn also touched on, we want to expand our reach to overseas donors, particularly those who've got strong Cape Town connections. That's really key. Another idea which we are exploring is to have an online auction collaborating with an outreach organisation such as the Dental Wellness Foundation, which also focuses on fighting hunger, but in the townships as opposed to in our Jewish community. So that'll be a good win-win collaboration. Key also is to keep our donors. It's much harder to get new donors than to retain existing donors. And that actually has come through, has been a common thread in some of the presentations. So what we need to do is work on that 12-month donor journey, recognize our donors, tailor-make our communication more effectively to them, etc. And also what came out in Glenn's results were how important 3 donors particularly were to the total donation amount. And those are the people that we need to nurture and to have face-to-face communication with, get to know them better, and pay a lot of attention to them, build that relationship. Finally, once we have a successful formula that we're really, really happy with, we're going to roll out to other Jewish organizations and tweak, depending on the needs of the organization. Thank you. Handing over to Tammy.
So to sum up our key learnings, we took a very kind of business-like approach to our project because we really didn't have time. And we also believe that best practice should be applied to our organizations, particularly in the fundraising realm. And we spent a lot of time, like most of you, in our kind of ideation phase where we discussed many ideas, and what came across very strongly there was how badly we need to professionalize how fundraising works and use best practice throughout the world and bring it into our organizations. So in line with that, we took a view to be very honest with the way that we looked at our project and also the way that we looked at our group dynamics, because we feel that's the way that organizations should run in this community. what was very tough for us was COVID and Zoom, and we struggled to connect to one another, and eventually we came together at my house, and I think it changed the way we were able to interact with one another. It brought in that social element. We could connect to one another, and I think we've all stressed this, but it's something critical to bring together people is how you really get the best out of things. And it's worth mentioning that it's really worthwhile to go visit the Tikva Food Bank, because when you're in that space, you understand the magic of what they do, and we really should be welcoming, when the time is appropriate, people into our organizations to see what they do, because then you leave with a very strong sense of what they're about. Outside of that, like all the rest of you, we struggled with our kind of balancing our work lives and this project life. And what was really difficult was that 3 weeks to just make everything happen. We started and ended our campaign in 3 weeks. So we are quite proud of what we managed to achieve. What was interesting about our group is that we were very heavy on marketing expertise, and that proved to be quite challenging because we were often looking over one another's shoulders, and it took quite a while for us to settle down. But what was fascinating to me is even in preparing this presentation, I could see how much easier our working relationship became and how we learned to work with one another and allow for one another. And interestingly, one of the points that's on that slide is that we didn't really sum up, but in preparing this presentation, I think we actually did really sum up, and we've got a lot that we're looking to carry forward based on our learnings that came together here. What was really remarkable about our group is how everybody just pitched in and worked incredibly hard and gave 150% at all times. And what was also interesting is how we leveraged off our networks. I think our fundraising was very much because we each personally connected to the people we asked to give, and that's how we had success. So again, something to note for fundraising. So just to be clear, guys, our target was to raise 180,000 Rand. That was what the food bank needed when we first started discussing it, and we got to 185. So we're very proud of ourselves. And what we want to invite you on as a fundraising team is this idea of a 180 hero and how applicable it is to each of you. So we want to remind you, when you find 180 hero campaigns in the future and you invite into them, please take your hands out of your pockets, give 180 Rand once over a recurring donation in a lump sum, however you want to, but please take the time to give to the community as well. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. What a phenomenal presentation. And to think that you pulled it off in 3 weeks, it's unbelievable. And I think what really, the message that I'm taking away from that is what's possible when we come together, when we put our minds together, when we leverage our strengths and the diversity that each of you guys bring, when we leverage our networks, as we shared earlier, and the influence that you have. It's really, really remarkable. And what might be possible if you had more time? I mean, that's the question that we're sitting with. So thank you so much for that. And with that, I'd like to invite Ilan Berman to please get ready to join us to share his insights with us this evening. Ilan is the Assistant Director of Development for Hillel and comes to us live from Maryland in Washington. He's also an ex-Cape Townian and is well known in the Cape Town Jewish community. We are so grateful to have you join us here this evening, and over to you, Ilan.
Thank you so much, everybody. It's with a great deal of humility that I come on this evening. There are many communal giants on this call whose fundraising acumen far exceeds mine. So I defer to them on many of these topics. Firstly, congratulations to the group on a very, very compelling initiative. The results speak for themselves, and 185,000 Rand is nothing to be sneezed at. The copy was clearly absolutely brilliant, and I found very, very compelling. The initiative is genius in the sense that it plays to a couple of things that we know about fundraising. Firstly, we are well aware that people like giving to specific causes. They like knowing directly what impact they're achieving. I think you lowered the bar to entry, which is important. First gift is always the hardest to secure. And seeking out donors where they're at through the use of technology is obviously an arena in which any successful fundraising campaign is going to have to play and adjust. The platform that you developed is not dissimilar from a number of initiatives that have found a great deal of success in the States after initially being dismissed One of them I signed up for $1 a day. These are very easy recurring platforms, and it makes a lot of sense. Much like you, I am also intrigued by the fact that you secured a larger number of once-off gifts. I'm curious whether that might have changed if you offered some different tiered giving amounts. In other words, differentiated the once-off amount from the monthly ask, or presented giving levels so that people could actually opt in at different levels. I know that dilutes to some extent this 180 hero initiative, but I think you want to create a bit of aspiration for individuals who might be giving below their pay grade, and also it might invite people in with lower monthly contributions. I was very heartened to hear this talk about wanting to meet with and steward donors, as we appreciate, and it's often where fundraising organizations fall down, is that stewardship is the key to the next gift. The thank you is often the most important part of the entire philanthropic process. The language that we use very often in the States is moving from transactional philanthropy to relational philanthropy. A model like you've proposed is very much transactional. That is great and wonderful to get people in the door. It's what you do with them once they are in the door that matters and is going to lead to larger gifts down the line. I will be very, very honest with everyone on the call. I am by nature an institutionalist. I think one of the tremendous gifts of the Cape Town Jewish community and a handful of communities around the world is the notion of a centralized campaign. I say this not because of any particular love for the UJC as the UJC. I think that the UJC fulfills an absolutely pivotal purpose. It is often the most needy organizations, the ones that go unseen, that are incapable of competing in this in the marketplace for support. I think people have a tendency to look very much at a shortened timeline when making philanthropic gifts, especially the initial ones. And the question is, how do you get them to support organizations that may not be serving them or their families right now, but we know as a community they're going to come to rely on in decades forward. There is tremendous merit in a centralized initiative that prevents shirking of philanthropic responsibility in some way or form. So the challenge I would put to the group in terms of next steps is, how would you take this model that you've developed and apply it to a centralized campaign and move from a direct fee for service model, and I use service in inverted commas, of buying a tick for parcel, meritorious and important though that is to contributing to the central overarching welfare of the community. I'm reminded of what one of my employers, one of my bosses once said to me. Centralized fundraising is countercultural, but being countercultural is often a source of strength, and one needs to find ways to navigate it. So I think there are ways to utilize this technology for a centralized endeavor that I would love to hear from the group about fleshing that out. But I think all said, it is a tremendous, tremendous initiative. I think it has got huge applicability across the community. And I just pose that one challenge to the group about how you would apply it to a centralized fundraising branch like the UJC.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ilan, for those insightful words and the feedback to the group. Who of you would like to respond to that? If anyone at this stage, you might need some time to give thought to it.
It's a definite time to think. Okay. And I mean, I think it's a bigger conversation that extends far greater than our group. But I think there's great value in what he's saying. And
Can you talk into him?
sorry. I think there's great value in what he's saying. And actually, we were very clear, we didn't say that in the presentation because we had too much to say, that we really chose the low-hanging fruit. Telling people that people are hungry and asking them to give money is very easy. It's far more difficult when you're trying to give that money into 36 or 90 organizations and people are political or irreligious or religious and they're competing agendas. How could we do it? I think with a lot of brain power, and I think with trying to figure out through a lot more of your presentations, what's sexy to people and what's appealing to people. So if we look at the group before us, that those insights could be richly used to kind of create the kind of campaign which would appeal to more people in ways that actually speak to them. So it's a conversation that extends far past fundraising. It's just we would put the sexy marketing spin on it if it was our job.
Can I just add to that, actually? I've just thought of something, and that is when I mentioned research and getting a much better database and psychographics to flesh out the demographics, if we had a really good database and we knew more about what makes our donors tick and what are their interests and what are their lifestyles, then I think if we wanted to do a centralized campaign, it would be far more effective if we had that information, if we had that research, if we had that sort of more valuable database. So that could be one way.
I can also add, Ilan, just to answer your question, we would love the opportunity to roll this out as a campaign for the entire Jewish community. And you would then break it down into little submodels. How we would speak to the kids at Hertz here to be a 180 hero would be very different to the way we spoke to the young adults, which would be very different to the way we speak to the professionals or the people who are working. But the concept of, it's all businesses have done this, all big brands do it. You get them when they're young, and they're going to travel with you for as long as possible. And 180 Rand footprint, my kids could do that now, right? If they're willing to part with their pocket money, but they could do it. I think what's very valuable, which is a debate that we had amongst ourselves, is did we pitch our amount too low with 180 Rand a month? Clearly, because people did donate more, but it was very much a marketing thing. Right, more a marketing thing possibly than a commercial thing, because it just worked. 180 Rand high, repeat, small amounts, get them in. That was the basis of our campaign.
Our other critical comment, and I think that's more applicable to like a fundraising collective, is the international market, but pitched lower, because a lot of attention is given to the top donors internationally, but there's so many people who've left this country that would give little bits or bits to the organizations that they care for that we really didn't have time to target, but we felt was a massive untapped market, and we felt that our key networks there, those networks would open up to us, because the pitch of giving to the Cape Town community versus individual organizations is actually very strong. So we wish we had more time to do that.
Absolutely. That really is so valuable. And do we have any more thoughts or comments from anyone in the room? Yes. Okay, we've got a couple. I'll start with Nicola here at the front. Just multitask.
First of all, well done. I mean, I've always been very impressed by the shift in the look of the food bank. I mean, it attracted my attention, and this ties in very beautifully with that, and definitely appeals to like a side of me that I think applies to so many other people in the community. One thought, I love the Chai idea, which I didn't see you bring up in terms of your pitch, but in a way of being able to, first of all, maybe tackle the youngsters, is take the concept of the 180 and to make it 18, 180, 1,800, and even up to the high amount. So keep the figure, because I like the kind of solidity of that. It's manageable, and then but maintain that high idea. I think that's stunning. Well done. I can definitely see a synergy between the volunteerism, all of them.
Thank you, Nicola. Yes. Another comment here.
Firstly, well done. I mean, I just really, I loved your graphics and your campaign. It was amazing. My question really is, I've noticed that short campaigns are quite effective. So, for example, a lot like Cape Town Torah High has done a charity campaign, and Orania did one, etc. And I'm just wondering about that versus long-term campaigns. Are shorter campaigns more successful because there's an urgency and people know they need to give now, because if it's not done by a certain time, the matches won't come in, etc. So although you had 3 weeks, was that not a strength in a way because there was an urgency?
Bear in mind, we had 3 weeks to plan and execute and raise. It wasn't 3 weeks
And
to
also,
just...
It was 3 weeks, by the way, from the 10th of December, which was the start of Hanukkah, to the 31st of December, and all of us were so over COVID and everything else, and we were all it was a very tiring time of the year. It was a time when people go away on holiday, so actually the time of the year was also not a good time of the year. But you know what I mean? It is good, though, in fundraising to always have a time pressure. I do agree with you. in my experience, but I think a longer time period would have been far more effective. So we would have liked to have carried it on to till today, or till just before today. That would have been better.
It doesn't mean you can't open your phones and open SnapScan and we put that QR code up there again, right? Stop you from doing that. Thank you.
All right, and that's us for time. Guys, well done. Another round of applause.